Be inspired, supported, and empowered. This is the Global Healthy Living Foundation podcast network.
Welcome to Informed Immunity, a wellness evolution podcast in which we tackle the crucial topics that impact community health, respiratory infectious diseases, vaccine advocacy, and more. I'm Angel Tapia, your guide into the world of community health, and a senior manager of Hispanic community outreach at the Global Healthy Living Foundation. Joining me is my colleague, Dr. Daniel Hernandez, Director of Medical Affairs and Hispanic Outreach. Together, we're here to break down complex health topics into easily understandable insights, answering the questions you've always had about vaccines and more. In this episode, we will discuss the topic of demystifying vaccines. Thank you, Daniel, for joining us today.
It's a pleasure to be here to discuss a topic of great importance, vaccines, and more importantly, vaccine advocacy.
I'm so glad we're having this conversation, especially because according to the CDC, vaccine misinformation is growing and it's causing real damage. A 2022 study found that misinformation on social media may be contributing to vaccine hesitancy and reduced vaccine uptake. Why is it important to learn more about vaccines, even if you're not vaccine hesitant?
Great question. It's important because the more you know, the better off you are in demystifying myths around you. Vaccines are one of the most important public health interventions in history. They have saved millions of lives and prevented countless cases of serious illness. So we're here today to dispel those myths, the myths that have been going around on social media and maybe even around your social network in person. And we're here to provide evidence-based information about the importance and safety of vaccines. What we want to do is we want to empower people to make informed decisions about their health and also the health of their loved ones. So whether you're a parent who's wondering if vaccines are safe for your child or an adult who's questioning whether you need to get vaccinated against COVID-19, or someone that wants to speak to a family member and try to bring evidence-based information to them, we hope this podcast will give you the information you need to make the best decision for yourself and for your family.
Well, let's get right into it and talk about the common myths and dispel them. There seems to be a significant discussion around mRNA vaccines and whether they interact with our DNA. Could you clarify this?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a common misconception, but the truth is mRNA, what it does is that it serves as a set of instructions for cells. That's it. So it directs them to create proteins. They work by delivering a piece of mRNA code. It instructs the body cell to produce a protein, and in the COVID-19 case, it produces a protein that resembles a virus. And this protein then triggers the immune system to produce antibodies that can protect against the infection in the long term. It's separate from DNA. It doesn't integrate into it. And the mRNA, once it tells the body cells the protein to produce, it disintegrates after its function and it's done.
Thank you, Daniel. That was very informative. And now what can you tell us about the long-term side effects of vaccines? Some people are concerned about what might happen years down the line.
That's also a very valid question. It's something very important to keep in mind that vaccines undergo rigorous testing for both short-term and long-term effects. Most side effects, if they do occur, are manifested shortly after the vaccination, usually mild, unless it's an allergic reaction. But there's no credible evidence to suggest serious long-term effects that are attributable to vaccines. It's also important to note that once the vaccine is out in the public, it's not like it ends the testing. The monitoring of these vaccines are constant by governmental bodies, not only in the United States, but around the world. So if there is a side effect, a serious side effect especially, it would be addressed immediately.
So moving on to another topic that has captured public attention, the supposed link between vaccines and autism. What does the science say?
So not true. Completely not true. The claim linking vaccines to autism has been discredited time and time again. Numerous studies have been done, and there is no association between vaccines and autism. Here's a bit of a summary. So in 2019, a study found from 100 different studies that there's no evidence of a link between the MMR vaccine and autism. A 2020 study in the journal Pediatrics found that children who received the MMR vaccine were no more likely to develop autism than children who did not receive the vaccine. I mean, these children that did not receive the vaccine were highly susceptible to getting measles, mumps, or rubella. And these diseases without the vaccine are extremely dangerous for the child. The claim that vaccines cause autism was actually made in 1998, and it was a published medical journal that was retracted afterward. And the reason why it was retracted, other than there was no scientific evidence to support the study, was that the author, Andrew Wakefield, had falsified the data. And the reason why is because he had financial ties to a lawyer who was suing vaccine manufacturers. So the lawyer wanted to have something that was backing the claim and partnered with Andrew Wakefield, a scientist at the time, and falsified this data. Unfortunately, despite the overwhelming scientific evidence that vaccines do not cause autism, some people continue to believe this myth. This has led to a decline in vaccination rates, which has in turn led to outbreaks of preventable diseases such as measles and mumps. It's important to remember that vaccines are safe and effective. They are one of the most important public health interventions of all time. So getting vaccinated is the best way to protect yourself and your loved ones from serious diseases.
Thank you so much for that detailed and informative explanation, Daniel. It is important to remember that vaccines are safe and effective, and that they are the best way to protect ourselves and our loved ones from serious diseases. Now, some argue that the natural immunity is sufficient protection. What are your thoughts?
Well, so natural immunity basically means not being vaccinated. Natural immunity does provide some level of protection. So if you get the virus, you will have some sort of a level of protection, but it's often not as robust or long-lasting as vaccine-induced immunity. Vaccines are more reliable to safeguard against these diseases because it basically means that you're not getting infected in order for you to produce an immune response. Also, vaccines are designed to target specific parts of the pathogen of the virus. This allows the immune system to develop a more targeted and effective response. They also expose your immune system to a smaller amount of the virus. If that's the mechanism of action of the vaccine, many times you're not exposed to any of the virus, like in COVID-19 mRNA vaccinations. And this is a lot more ideal, obviously, than this natural immunity. And even though you're exposed to the pathogen this way, or not exposed at all, it's enough to stimulate a strong immune response without causing the disease. So natural immunity can also be detrimental to a number of people, especially those depending on their age and health of the individual, and also the strain of the pathogen. So for example, people who experience mild or asymptomatic infections may not develop a strong immune response, and those who are infected and have a chronic illness or are older than the age of 65 without this protection can have catastrophic effects on their body. Collectively, the evidence indicates that vaccine-induced immunity is a more reliable and potent mode of protecting oneself from diseases than natural immunity. So to put things into perspective, here's an analogy. Imagine you're building a house to shield yourself from the elements, from rain and from hurricanes and all these different natural disasters that can happen. Opting for natural materials like sticks and mud might not be the best choice, as they lack durability and offer meager protection against severe weather conditions. Conversely, synthetic materials like concrete and steel, renowned for their strength and durability, make a better choice. Vaccines are to the immune system what synthetic materials are to house building. They foster a more robust and lasting immune response compared to natural immunity.
Thank you for sharing that analogy. It's clear that vaccines are the best way to protect ourselves from disease, both in the short and long term. Another prevalent myth that the flu vaccine can give you the flu. Can you share more on this, considering that there are different types of flu vaccines available?
Sure. So all flu vaccines have quadrivalent protection, which basically means that they protect against a variety of strains of the flu. Flu vaccine cannot give you the flu. That is just a fact. This is because the vaccine contains inactivated, which is killed flu viruses, or a very weakened type of virus. So these can't replicate and cause illness, and they're not strong enough to cause illness in healthy people. That's the reason why you also have to speak to your physician about what is the best vaccine for you. So what essentially happens when you get the flu shot is that you're teaching your body how to fight against influenza virus. The influenza virus is pretty sneaky in that it mutates itself, and that's why we hear about the different strains of the flu. And what it does is that it mutates itself, that sometimes our body doesn't know how to protect itself simply because the mutation has been pretty intense so that it can still affect us. And that's the reason why we get a quadrivalent vaccine, so that we have a line of protection, and hopefully one of these strains that we've identified is the strain that you are being infected against. So that's a long way to say that sometimes we will get the flu virus. We will get infected by the flu, and we won't have the resources within our body to fight it off simply because of these mutations. But many times, the majority of the time, we do have the safeguards and we do have the protection within our body if we have been vaccinated, because we've trained our body how to deal with the flu virus.
So the bottom line is that vaccines are safe and effective to help protect ourselves and our loved ones from the flu.
That's correct.
Lastly, let's discuss a concern related to COVID-19 vaccine, specifically regarding fertility. Can you provide some insights on those concerns?
Sure. So during the pandemic, that's something that we heard from some initial studies. But after more studies and long-term studies, there's no scientific evidence to suggest that COVID-19 vaccines impact fertility in men or women. Some studies that we can cite is in the journal Vaccine in 2022. There was a study that found no association between COVID-19 vaccination and fertility impairment in women or in men. There was also a meta-analysis of 8 pre-post studies. So basically an analysis of many different studies that found that the same sperm concentration in men were found if they were vaccinated or not for the COVID-19 virus. And there's many, many more. So there is one little thing that has been found, and it's that some women, females, may experience temporary changes in their menstrual cycle after receiving the COVID-19 vaccine. However, these changes are usually mild and resolve on their own within a few months. Overall, the evidence suggests that COVID-19 vaccines are safe and effective for people of all reproductive ages. In fact, getting vaccinated against COVID-19 is one of the best things you can do to protect your fertility and your overall health.
Thank you for shedding light on that concern. It is important to remember that the benefits of getting vaccinated against COVID-19 far outweigh any potential risks, especially when it comes to fertility. And thank you so much for this informative discussion, Daniel. It's crucial to dispel these myths and provide the evidence-based information.
I agree, Angel. It's our responsibility to make well-informed health decisions based on credible sources.
Before we go, I think it would be important for us to have a refresher on what vaccines actually are. So my first question is, how do vaccines work?
Vaccines teach your body how to produce antibodies against the virus you are being vaccinated for. This helps protect you from infection in the short term. Vaccines also help train other immune cells known as B cells and T cells. T cells recognize when a pathogen enters the body and attacks infected cells. And B cells produce antibodies that directly interact with the pathogen to neutralize them. These have something like a memory that allows them to identify and respond every time a given pathogen enters the body.
And can you tell us what role boosters play in immunity?
Boosters, or additional doses of any vaccine, provoke an immune response and further strengthen your immune system, both in the short term and the long term. That is why doses are spaced apart. They help reactivate and strengthen the immune response for the short term and also the long term.
And can you shed some light on why some people do have side effects?
Sure. So vaccines induce an immune response because they introduce sometimes a part of the virus, but also sometimes just a little bit of an instruction of how to fight this virus. It is a bit of the virus. It's not enough to fully infect you with a disease, but many people might have some side effects in response to the vaccine because the immune system is learning how to fight it off. And it is fighting it off in a very minor way. So the most important thing to remember is that the vaccine cannot give you the disease you are being vaccinated against. You might get some pain and redness at the injection site, some fatigue, fever, headache, but these should go away in a few days. If they haven't gone in a few days, it's very important to speak to your physician. And also something to note is if you get a vaccine, you should stay in the clinic or wherever you're getting your vaccination on site for around 15 minutes afterwards, just in case of an allergic reaction. Allergic reactions are very rare, but it's important to make sure that you're not one of the people that are allergic to a specific vaccine. And if you are, you're in the right place in order for the correct intervention to happen quickly.
Thank you for all of this information, Daniel. It never hurts to have a refresher and remind ourselves of the importance of our vaccines. And for more information, listeners can visit the CDC or WHO websites for more evidence-based information. Thank you for tuning in, and until next time, stay informed and stay healthy. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Informed Immunity, a Wellness Evolution podcast. We hope our discussions inspire meaningful conversations with your loved ones. For our Spanish-speaking listeners, episodes are also available in Espanol. If you have any questions or topic you'd like us to address, email us at podcasts@ghlf.org. And you can find all of GHLF's podcasts at ghlf.org/listen. If you like this podcast, give us a rating and write a review on Apple Podcasts and subscribe to us wherever you listen. It'll help more people like you find us. I'm Angel Tapia.
And I'm Dr. Daniel Hernandez.
Until next time, stay informed and stay safe.
Be inspired, supported, and empowered. This is the Global Healthy Living Foundation Podcast Network.